What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Now in today's video we're going to be covering all of the different foods that I feed my fancy goldfish and how often they get those foods. Now I've had quite a few comments on Instagram, the link is down below to the Instagram, people saying how many times a day do you feed and what do you feed. So in today's video I thought it's been quite a while since I've covered what foods I actually use for my Oranda and how often they get fed. First up, let's talk about how many times a day they get fed. Now, for my Oranda, I actually have a auto feeder, as you can see behind me. This is the Eheim auto feeder. So this actually feeds the goldfish 4 times every single day. And I've also got a sort of set amount of food that you can see there that comes out. So this rotates 4 times every single day, and these guys get fed some Hulk's goldfish pellets. Now, in addition to that, sometimes I feed once or twice in addition, and that is mainly just pellets. So mainly these guys are only eating pellets as their sort of complete diet, but I do have some other different types of foods that I feed as well. Now, in just a second, I'll show you the pellets I'm currently using, and then we can go on to the other additional foods that I feed as well. Now, around 6 months ago, Hulk's Goldfish Food sent me some different foods to try out. As you can see here, we've got lots of different foods. We've got the sort of Red Emperor one as well. So currently these guys are having the Red Emperor food, but I've been feeding many different types of the Hulk's range. I've also got some deworm food here as well, which I haven't fed because it does have antibiotics in it and I'm not prepared to use that unless I see cause for it. So I've been using the different Hulk's foods for quite a while and I really like their foods. They have really good quality ingredients. Now I don't prefer any specific pellet in particular and I've just tried quite a few different ones. Now some that stood out to me were the vegan food. I really did like that one. Also the gold package and the black package. I would say they're probably my favourite 3 and I would love to sort of mix those in a feeder like this one and just giving 3 different pellets to the goldfish at once. Now the vegan food did have really good ingredients and I did really like the constituents of that package, and also as I mentioned the gold and black was really good as well. So those are the pellets that I actually feed my fancy goldfish, but there are other different foods that you can feed as well. Now I also feed the Rapashi Super Gold gel food. Now this is just a powder that you get, hopefully you can see in there without me spilling it out, but you actually get this green powder that you can mix up with boiling water, and then that actually makes a gel sort of paste which you can then break off and feed to your fancy goldfish. Now this is an absolutely great food, loads of really good quality ingredients, really good for these guys, super soft, super easy for them to digest. Generally, if your fish is having some sort of swim bladder issue or buoyancy issues, feeding a gel food like this one is really good for them as it passes through them easily and there is a low amount of air that's sort of trapped in this food, really low amount as compared to a sort of dry pellet food. Now apart from the gel food and the pellets, I also like to give my goldfish some treats now and again. Now you can feed these treats as part of a balanced diet and you can actually feed them every single day if you wanted to. Now these are frozen foods, so let's head over to my freezer now and we can check out what I've got in store. So as I come to the freezer, you will be able to see in this bottom drawer it is completely full of fish food. Now I have loads of these blister packs. I have absolutely loads of fish food in here. You can see we've got these blister packs here. I've got mussels. I've got, I think there's some more mussels here, some prawns. Let's take some of these packages out and then we can have a close look at them. As you can see, we had loads of different frozen foods in the freezer and the whole bottom drawer is completely full of the goldfish's food. Now, a few things I've picked out. First, we've got some mussels. These are just from Tesco, my local grocery shop, and I think this is half a kilo's worth of mussel. Now, I don't feed these that often, and when I do chop them up. Each mussel I sort of chop up into about 5 or 6 pieces, and they absolutely love these and go nuts for them. Really good quality protein source there. Although it is a marine source, it's not really a sort of part of a naturalistic style diet for fancy goldfish, even though fancy goldfish aren't a natural fish. It does provide them with some omega-3s and some really good quality nutritional profile. Now, I also have bloodworm and brine shrimp, as you can see here. Now, I don't prefer any brand in particular. I actually got these Superfish ones given to me by a friend. He gave me like 20 ballista packs that he didn't need. So these are just from Superfish, and I don't prefer them in particular. I just use them because I got given them. Now, brine shrimp is really good for getting certain like omega-3s and fatty acids, but it is not a very nutritionally complete diet, so it is good as a supplement, but it is not good to sort of focus your feedings around brine shrimp because it doesn't have a huge amount of nutrients in it. Bloodworm, I also think, is one of the best. It is like an insect-based food, as it is a bloodworm larvae, and it's obviously more of a naturalistic style diet. Goldfish would generally, if these guys were in the wild, which they're not, but some goldfish are in the wild, the sort of common goldfish, and they would generally eat foliage, insects, small fish maybe, but it's mostly on that insect and omnivorous sort of diet. So using some bloodworm, really high in protein, and these are really, really good as well. And that is pretty much all I feed my goldfish. Mainly, I would say 90% of their diet is actually the pellets coming out of this auto feeder. Now you can see this hopper here. I would say this auto feeder lasts me around 8 to 9 days worth of food. So this full hopper, which you can see is half the size of my hand, that lasts about 8 to 9 days, and I have to fill that up. I'm not exactly sure how much food this holds, but I would assume it holds maybe about 60 grams, 50 grams of food, something like that. And that is actually the main diet, and I really wanted to use mainly a pellet focused diet to see if it had any negative impacts on my fancy goldfish. I've actually been feeding these pellets for, I think it's been about 7 months or so, something like that, maybe 6 months or so, and I have had no negative effects at all. All of the fish are really fine and doing absolutely fine on this food. They're growing well, they're putting on size, looking really vibrant and beautiful. So it's really interesting to see that you can use a pellet based food solely on fancy goldfish. But if I was to provide my ideal sort of mix of diets for fancy goldfish, I would say a good ballpark figure to look for is 60% pellets, whichever your preferred pellet is. There are so many different ones out there, and there are some that are obviously much better than others, but there are so many out there. So 60% pellets, I would always go for a fine pellet, something that has a really small size, like this one here. This is a 1 mil size pellet. Even for these big fancy goldfish, this is going to reduce any internal issues, maybe with a large pellet that holds more gas or more air within it, and that could lead to any swim bladder issues or buoyancy problems. Going with a very small micro pellet is good as at around 60% of the diet. Then I would say 15 to 20% of the diet, you're looking at a gel food. This is going to provide some additional nutrients that aren't within the pellet. It's also a little bit of enrichment for the fish to chase around and something a little bit different for them. And then I would say the last 25%, 15 to 25%, you're going to be wanting to feed a frozen food. I would say mixing these between bloodworm, brine shrimp, maybe mysis shrimp, even Daphnia as well is great too. I would definitely focus towards the bloodworm, and if you can get it Daphnia, if you can get live cultures, that is even better than frozen food. But feeding either a frozen food or a live food is great for that last 15 to 20% of the diet, and that provides these guys with a really nice rounded whole diet. Now I would say in the wild, obviously if these guys were in the wild, they're going to be eating foliage, leaf litter, and an insect-based diet. So if you can feed a little bit more of those frozen or live foods, because they are a little bit more expensive, if you can feed more of those, it's only going to enhance and enrich these guys' lives. So that is really what I feed my fancy goldfish, and that is what I would recommend to feed your fancy goldfish. One final bonus tip, if you actually made it to the end of the video, is feeding these guys live food and actually having your own live food culture. Now, having a baby brine shrimp culture is absolutely great for young fish, and I would say my favorite live food to feed these guys, to give them both enrichment and nutrients, is Daphnia. Now, I think it's been about 2 years since I had my Daphnia culture, and I did do a video on it, setting up a big tank outside, letting the water go green, releasing a small colony of Daphnia into it, watching their population grow like crazy, and then feeding them to my fancy goldfish. No power, no electricity, no additional food, just a tank in the garden, let them do their thing, and it provides a great enrichment and a great nutrient source to our fancy goldfish. So if you're going to try a live food culture, definitely do some Googling or do some searching on Daphnia and have a look at the nutritional benefits and also the ease of starting your own culture. But that's it for today's video. If you do have any questions, please leave them down below. If you want to have your tank or setup featured on our tank tour series or our Rate My Tank series, then let me know down below. You can email me, fancygoldfishfanatics@gmail.com. But that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.